You better not send the drops unless that shit for sure. And when they do say yeah, we get to screaming out, let's go. No, I fuck on bitches, he gon' have his hoe. You wasn't in the trap before I got hold to them bros.
Alright, this is Deshaun. I'm in this bitch. And today we're gonna be talking about the Nickelodeon Mount Rushmore for the cartoons. The cartoon Mount Rushmore for Nickelodeon. The Mount Rushmore for Cartoon Network cartoons. And I might do Disney. I don't know if I'm gonna do Disney, dog. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. Like I watched Disney growing up, but nowhere near as much as Nick and Cartoon Network. You feel me? Like, I didn't watch it nowhere near it as much as Nick and Cartoon Network. I really only know the only Disney cartoons I really grew up watching was like the 2000 Disney cartoons, like the cartoons that came out in the 2000s. Like that was pretty much my era. I watched Fish Hooks too. Like, I watched that, but that's really the only one from the 2010s I done watched. In terms of like the 90s cartoons, I watched Recess, I watched Timon and Pumbaa. I seen the Little Mermaid cartoon, and that's about it for the 90s, bro. So like, but I know the impact of the other cartoons, so I might or might not do Disney. I might not even do Disney, honestly. I might not really do Disney like that. But I'm definitely gonna do the Nickelodeon Cartoon Network cartoons because I know I'm late to this trend. I seen it in I seen that it was a trend like last year and in 2020, but I'm gonna do which shows I feel like will be on the Mount Rushmore, like in terms of Nickelodeon cartoons and Cartoon Network cartoons. I might even do like different eras. Like I might even do like what would be the Mount Rushmore for like 80s babies, a Mount Rushmore for the 90s babies, and a Mount Rushmore for like the 2000s babies, maybe. But this one I'm gonna do like overall, you know. I'm definitely gonna do overall first, and maybe if I feel like I got enough time, I might do like the different like generations of each one. So starting with the Nickelodeon Mount Rushmore, because I feel like theirs won't be as hard, but it's always gonna be like several shows that get left off because there's only 4 shows, and Nickelodeon got a lot of impactful cartoons, which damn near all of Nick impactful cartoons came out either in the 90s or the early to mid 2000s, honestly. Like, the only cartoons with impact that came out in the 2010s was really Legends of Korra, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the Loud House. Everything else was kind of just there. Like, you know, they don't really got no cartoons that have an impact. But to me, the Mount Rushmore for Nick, I'm starting Nick because it's the easiest, because Cartoon Network is just, it's crazy. For Nick, it's definitely SpongeBob. SpongeBob, without a doubt, is on the Nickelodeon Mount Rushmore for cartoons. I mean, it's been on Nick since 1999. It's been on Nick for 4 decades. In 1999, the 2000s, all of the 2000s, all of the 2010s, and it's still on Nick to this day in the 2020s. So obviously SpongeBob is there. It's been Nickelodeon's personal mascot for a good 15 years. It's been like the most popular show on Nick for at least 20 years. Like, SpongeBob, without a doubt, is on Nickelodeon's Mount Rushmore. When you think of Nick, the first show you think of is SpongeBob. The first show you think of. The niggas that grew up watching SpongeBob got kids now, you know what I mean? Like, and kids still watching SpongeBob. Kids still love SpongeBob. Like, you know, SpongeBob, without a doubt, is on Nick's cartoon Mount Rushmore list. You know, is their biggest cartoon of all time, their biggest show of all time, without a doubt. SpongeBob is on there. Another show that I feel like should be on there. Um, and this isn't personal. This is just how I feel like, this is just my unbiased opinion on everything, on what shows I truly feel would be on the Mount Rushmore. So SpongeBob, without a doubt. Another show that has to be on there is Rugrats. Rugrats got to be on there as well. Um, Before SpongeBob, Rugrats was the biggest show on Nick for most of the 90s, pretty much. Rugrats had 3 movies. The Rugrats impact is just still huge. And even though, and Rugrats got the reboot, which I don't really give a shit about. But Rugrats is definitely on there because not only is it one of the first Nicktoons, it was the biggest Nicktoon many years before SpongeBob came along. Like from the 90s to like the early 2000s, Rugrats was one of the biggest shows. Like period. Before SpongeBob, it was Rugrats. So Rugrats got to be on there because when you think of Nick, Rugrats is still to this day, 30 years later, is still one of the first shows you think about. So Rugrats definitely got to be there. It's still popular to this day as well. Like everywhere I go, I see people with Rugrats shirts. Like kids with Rugrats shirts, kids who didn't even grow up on the original Rugrats with Rugrats shirts, adults, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, like Rugrats is still around. So Rugrats definitely second on the Mount Rushmore list. Now third, you gotta put the Fairly Odd Parents on there. You gotta put the Fairly Odd Parents. It's the second longest running Nicktoon of all time after SpongeBob. The Fairly Odd Parents ran for 16 years. For a long time, SpongeBob and the Fairly Odd Parents were 2 of the biggest Nickelodeon shows for a long time. Like in the mid to late 2000s to like the early 2010s, it was SpongeBob and the Fairly Odd Parents were the 2 biggest Nicktoons. Like period. Like the Fairly Odd Parents was hanging with SpongeBob for a long time until 2017, but the Fairly Odd Parents was hanging around for a long time on Nick. Like without a doubt, you got to put the Fairly Odd Parents on there. Again, one of the first Nicktoons you think of is the Fairly Odd Parents. It lasted for 16 years. The Fairly Odd Parents was big as shit too from the early 2000s to like at least the early 2010s. But definitely throughout the 2000s, the Fairly Odd Parents was huge. Like, you just gotta have the Fairly Odd Parents on there. I feel like for Nick, the main 3 shows that gotta be on the Mount Rushmore is SpongeBob, Rugrats, Fairly Odd Parents. Those are the main 3 shows you just gotta put in terms of popularity, longevity, impact. Those 3 shows you just gotta put on that shit. Like if you don't got them 3 shows on your Mount Rushmore for Nick, unless it's a personal Mount Rushmore, then you're hating. Like you just hating, bro, because those 3 shows just gotta be there. And they just came out with a new live action Fairly Odd Parents 2, which I haven't watched. The shit looks trash. I don't know why they keep remaking these old shows. Like they honestly just need to let go of it. Like I don't understand why they keep remaking it. It's never as good. And they always make it live action, or they make it CGI, or it be the same exact thing like with the Rugrats shit. What they should have did with Rugrats, instead of making them babies again, like they had 172 episodes. How many seasons they had? Like 8, 10 seasons. 13 years. We seen them niggas with babies for 13 years. 13 years, 172 episodes, 8 to 10 seasons. How many seasons they had? 3 movies. Like we seen these niggas as babies for 13 years. Why? We don't need to see them babies again. What they should have did, they should have had Tommy, Chucky, Phil, Lil, Kimmy, Dill, Angelica, Susie. They should have had all of them as adults. You could either put them in college. That would have been dope. They could either put them in college or had them as adults with their own kids, and then have their kids go on adventures. And then had Dee Dee, Stu, Charlotte, and all of them as grandparents. If they would have did some shit like that, had Tommy and them grow up and have their own kids and their kids go on adventures, that would have been dope. That would have been like the new Rugrats for the new gen. You know, like the adults, you know, we watching it to see, you know, what Tommy and Chucky and all of them are doing as adults, but the kids could be watching it for the babies and shit. Just like how we was watching it for Tommy, Chucky, and Angelica and all of them, while the adults, you know, they was more fucking with, you know, the adult themes with Chaz and Charlotte and Stu and everybody, you know, like, if they would have did that, I would have loved it. That would have been dope. Like, how you go from all grown up when they're, like, preteens, and, well, Angelica and Susie were teenagers, but Tommy and all of them was, like, 10, 11 years old, like, preteens. How you go from them being, like, in middle school to them being back to babies? Like, it don't make sense. We already seen enough of them as babies, but I'm rambling. But anyways, you gotta have those three on the Mount Rushmore. Now the fourth spot is tough. The fourth spot is tough because this is a lot of shows that could be on there. As long as you got those three on there, I don't have a problem with it. But the fourth spot, you could have Avatar on there. You could have Hey Arnold on there. You could have Ren and Stimpy on there because Ren and Stimpy was big as shit. Like, at one point, and it's one of the first 3 original Nicktoons as well. Those are the main 3 shows I could see grabbing the 4th spot. Really between Hey Arnold, Avatar. I don't think Ren and Stimpy quite gets it, but if someone had Ren and Stimpy on their list, I wouldn't be too mad. But definitely honorable mentions to Ren and Stimpy. Also honorable mentions to Jimmy Neutron. Because for years, like in the mid 2000s, from the mid to late 2000s even too, like SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, and Jimmy Neutron was like the big 3 for Nickelodeon for a while. Like in 2004, 2005, definitely in 06, 07, 08 even, like the big 3 was SpongeBob, the Fairly Odd Parents, and Jimmy Neutron. That was the undisputed big 3 for Nickelodeon for like a good like 5 years. You know, Jimmy Neutron, SpongeBob, and Fairly Odd Parents. Those were the big 3 for Nick for a while. So like Jimmy Neutron was definitely big as shit back then. You know, like definitely honorable mentions to them. Like they could arguably be on there. Like any of the 4 shows I named, if someone had them on the Mount Rushmore, I wouldn't be mad. You know, like, you know, I just think Jimmy Neutron just barely missed it. I think it's really between Hey Arnold and Avatar. Because the thing about Avatar, yeah, it only lasted for 3 years, but the impact, Avatar had a tremendous, huge impact. You know, like, it's arguably bigger now than it was when it was airing. Like, you know, when it's the only show to ever beat SpongeBob in the KCAs. It beat it in the 2008 KCAs. The only show to ever beat it. Other than that, nobody could beat SpongeBob, like, in that shit. Yeah, like, Avatar is up there, man, like. But then you got Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold, that's just the OG. But not only that, Hey Arnold got longevity. Hey Arnold lasted for 8 years. From 96 to 04, it had 100 episodes. Hey Arnold was also really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s especially. Hey Arnold was like probably before SpongeBob came, after Rugrats. Hey Arnold was probably like the second most popular Nicktoon after Rugrats before SpongeBob came. Like Hey Arnold was up there. Hey Arnold was big competition for Rugrats for years. You know, Hey Arnold had his own movie. They brought Hey Arnold back for the Jungle movie in 2017. But Hey Arnold is up there. Like when you think of Nicktoons and Nickelodeon cartoons, Hey Arnold is one of the shows you immediately think of. At least if you're older. For me, like it's not on the same as like Rugrats, Fair Parents, and SpongeBob, but it's up there. Like you still, especially people like in their 20s and 30s, like Hey Arnold's one of the first shows you're thinking of when you think of the Nicktoons, bro. Like, you know, just I don't know. It's really between Hey Arnold and Avatar. Either you could put either one. You could put either one. You could put either one on there. It's tough. It's tough, man. It's tough between Hey Arnold and Avatar. I'm gonna have to go with Hey Arnold. I think I'm gonna have to go with Hey Arnold grabbing the fourth spot though. But then again, Avatar. It's really between those two. I have to pick one though. I have to pick one for the video. It's just Hey Arnold. Hey Arnold just lasted so long and it was popular too. Like, and you know it's the OG. Like Avatar OG 2 now though, but Hey Arnold's the OG. But Avatar is so damn popular right now. Like, you know, like years later, like when you think of Nick, you also think of Avatar. It's really tough. This one of the things you flip a coin, you choose heads, it's Avatar, tails, Hey Arnold. Whichever one it lands on could get that final spot. It could honestly go either way. But I'm still gonna give it. I'm gonna give it to Hey Arnold. I'm gonna give it to Hey Arnold as the fourth and final spot. If you put Avatar on that bitch, I definitely wouldn't be mad. It could go either way. I'm just trying to choose because it's a lot of time. You know, it's long as hell already. It's already 17, and I want to do Cartoon Network in this video as well. Yeah, I'm gonna just pick Hey Arnold mainly because it's one of the, you know, one of like the original Nicktoons. Like it's an OG, like for real OG, and it lasted so long. And it was one of Nick's biggest shows for so long, for like arguably 8 years. It was one of Nick's biggest shows, and the longevity, the seasons, the life lessons. The older you get, the more you relate to Hey Arnold. Like Hey Arnold was just real nigga shit, bro. Like nigga was, you know, he was in the inner city. Like most cartoons you don't even see in the inner city, bro. Like nigga was in the hood and shit. Like that shit actually felt like, and even though I know Hillwood was set in what? See, it's like a combination of Seattle, Portland, and New York, but that shit really felt like New York, bro. Hey Arnold really felt like some New York ass shit. It's just the older you get, the more you just realize how great and like adult themes was in that bitch, but you could relate to Arnold. Like it was just real nigga shit. And Hey Arnold just arguably defined, like Avatar defined the generation too, but Hey Arnold defined definitely, like if you was born from like the mid 80s to the mid 90s, Hey Arnold defined that generation. Like pretty much millennial shit. Like you a millennial, Hey Arnold defined your generation. Like especially in the hood, Hey Arnold was big as hell in the hood. Like a lot of niggas just related to that shit. But same can be said for Avatar. That shit definitely defined like mid 90s babies, the early 2000s babies, but even like kids that was babies when Avatar was on, and some that wasn't even born, like, You know, they fuck with Avatar. Adults that was in their 20s and 30s when Avatar was airing, they fuck with Avatar. So it could go either way, but I'll just still give the edge to Hey Arnold, because Hey Arnold is just the OG, man. It's real tough though. It could easily go to Avatar. Honorable mentions to Avatar, Jimmy Neutron, and Ren and Stimpy. Definitely. I feel like any of those 3 shows could be on the list. I just feel like the must, like, they just have to be on the list is SpongeBob, Rugrats, and Fairly Odd Parents. They have to be on the Mount Rushmore. No ifs, ands, and buts. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like, they just must. But the 4th spot could go to either one of those 4 shows I named. Now let's move on to the Cartoon Network list. Cartoon Network list. Cartoon Network is always Cartoon Network, dog. Like, Cartoon Network is just always just crazy. Like, you never know with Cartoon Network. Like, god damn, it's just always been a crazy channel. Like, with everything, it's just crazy. Like, Cartoon Network just had so many goddamn shows. And unlike Nick, you could easily put the 2010 shows on the list too. Like with Nick, only shows that really stood a chance on being on this list is the shows in the 90s to the mid 2000s. With Cartoon Network, you got 90 shows on there. You got 2000 shows that could be on there. You got even the 2010 shows could be on there. Like shit, like it's if I just name the shows and it's only 4 spots, that's what makes it so hard. Like, it's only 4 spots, but if you name the shows that could be there, Dexter's Lab got a case, the Powerpuff Girls got a case, Ed, Edd and Eddy got a case to be on there, Courage the Cowardly Dog got a case, Codename Kids Next Door, Billy and Mandy, Teen Titans, what's another one? Ben 10 got a case. Shit, you could put Adventure Time on there. You could put Regular Show on there. You could even put Gumball on there. Like, all these shows I named have a case to be on the list. All these shows have a case. Now the list I seen earlier, I seen the list that they had, like Adventure Time, Regular Show, Gumball, Steven Universe. Definitely disagree with that list. Alright? That list is not accurate at all. But for what it looked like, it has to be for like the newer gen, because it has to be for like 2010s Cartoon Network, because there's no way. Because you can't have a Mount Rushmore just from one era. Because like niggas in they 30s and they 20s is not gonna be fucking with that list. Because, you know, it's like, nigga, where are the OGs? You just got the new niggas, but you don't got the OGs that help build the foundation of Cartoon Network. Like, without shit like Dexter and the Powerpuff Girls and the Eds and Courage and Ben 10 and Kids Next Door and Billy Mint, like, without all them shows, nigga, like, none of them shows would even happen. You know, so you gotta have the OGs. So, I'm gonna do the Cartoon Network one. It's tough. Cartoon Network got hella shows that could be on that shit, nigga. Like, all these shows I name have a case to be on there. You know, based off popularity, impact, longevity. Like, yeah, Cartoon Network shit is tough. I ain't gonna lie to you. The first pick I'ma do. First pick, I gotta put Ed, Edd and Eddy on there. Gotta have Ed, Edd and Eddy, you know. And the reason I put Ed, Edd and Eddy is honestly longevity. Ed, Edd and Eddy ran for 10 years, from 1999 to 2009. Now, obviously, at a certain point, it wasn't as consistent as dropping new episodes. Like after 2004, they wasn't dropping episodes consistently. Consistently. I fucked that shit up. Consistently. But it's 10 years is 10 years, dog. And not only that, Ed and Eddy was one of the more popular shows damn near throughout the whole run, at least from From 1999 to 2008, Ed, Edd n Eddy was Cartoon Network's one of its biggest shows for 9 years. For 9 years. So for 9 out of 10 years of that run, it was one of Cartoon Network's bigger shows. One of the more popular shows that lasted on the network for that long. Longest running show in Cartoon Network history. To this day. Not only that, they were still showing reruns of Ed, Edd n Eddy in the early 2010s to like 2011, 2012. They were still showing reruns of Ed, Edd n Eddy. So, you know, you got a generation who know Ed, Edd n Eddy. Like, niggas born in the mid 2000s most likely know what Ed, Edd n Eddy is. Most likely grew up in Ed, Edd n Eddy, at least like early in their childhood. Like, not only that, but Ed, Edd n Eddy is arguably the funniest show in Cartoon Network history. Just the slapstick, the humor. You gotta have Ed, Edd n Eddy on that shit just because it ran for so long. It ran throughout pretty much the whole 2000s. The whole 2000s. It ran the whole decade. Then it ended like, I think, if I recall correctly, it ended November 8th of 2009. So you really only got like a little bit under 2 months of the 2000s that Ed, Edd n Eddy wasn't running. But Ed, Edd n Eddy was on Cartoon Network throughout the whole 2000s and the early 2010s and in 1999. So you just got to have Ed, Edd n Eddy on there because Ed, Edd n Eddy transcended throughout multiple eras. It was in the Powerhouse era, the CN City era, the Yes era, the Nudes era. They was still rerunning it in the Check It era. Like, Ed, Edd n Eddy just was around, nigga. Like, it was always on Cartoon Network for like years. Always seen Ed, Edd n Eddy on Cartoon Network. One of the biggest shows of all time in Cartoon Network history. When you think of Cartoon Network, Ed, Edd n Eddy is one of the shows you think of. So, you know, to me, you gotta have Ed, Edd n Eddy on there. I feel like another show that just has to be on there, you gotta put Dexter's Lab on there. Gotta put Dexter's Lab. Similar to Rugrats, Dexter's Lab is the OG of all OGs. Dexter's Laboratory is the first cartoon. The first cartoon for Cartoon Network. So without Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Count Chicken, the Power Girls, Courage, like none of that shit would happen, bro. Dexter's Lab is the first cartoon. You know, and just its popularity, again, Dexter's Lab is one of the first shows. When you think of Cartoon Network, you think of Dex. Dexter's Lab is one of the first shows you think of. One of the oldest. It's an OG. Arguably Cartoon Network's most popular show throughout like the late 90s, early 2000s, especially. Dexter's Lab was popular as shit at one point. One of the most popular, definitely. You just gotta have Dex on there. Like, without Dex, all the shows that came after it just wouldn't have happened, because Dexter's Laboratory was just a landmark for Cartoon Network. Like, just popular as shit. You know, like, just one of, like, outside of Space Ghost, which was like already like a previous generation. Like, I think the original Space Ghost came out like in the 60s. Dexter's Laboratory was really like the first original, just popular, that you've never seen before, just popular cartoon that influenced all the rest of, you know, Cartoon Network, influenced the Powerpuff Girls, influenced Johnny Bravo. You know, without Dexter's Lab, there would be no Samurai Jack. Like, it's just an OG. Like, you gotta have Dexter. You gotta have Dexter's Lab on the Mount Rushmore, because without Dexter's Lab, ain't none of these cartoons or Cartoon Network would be around. You know, it's just facts. You gotta have Dexter's Lab on there. You know, it's a must. So definitely Ed, Edd n Eddy gotta be on there. Definitely Dexter's Lab. just the impact of it. I feel like Dexter's Lab is arguably the most impactful show on Cartoon Network in Cartoon Network history. You know, you definitely gotta have Dexter's Lab on there, because I feel like it set the foundation. Without Dexter's Lab, all the rest of them shows wouldn't be possible. It was the first cartoon. Not only that, it's one of the most popular and most known Cartoon Network shows in Cartoon Network history. And in the early 2000s, bro, like like in the late 90s, early 2000s, especially, like, nigga, Dexter was everywhere. Goddamn. His British accent, Diddy, like, shit funny as hell. Like, you gotta have Dexter's Lab on there. Third, you gotta have the Powerpuff Girls. You gotta have the Powerpuff Girls. Gotta have the Powerpuff Girls. I feel like the Powerpuff Girls gotta be on a Cartoon Network Mount Rushmore. This another one, just fucking huge in Cartoon Network history. Again, one of the first shows you think of when you think of Cartoon Network. The impact, the popularity, especially in the early 2000s, the late 90s, but especially in the early 2000s, bro. You couldn't miss the Powerpuff Girls. They had their own theatrical movie. Ain't they the only Cartoon Network show in Cartoon Network history to have a theatrical movie? That shit was in theaters, nigga. The Powerpuff Girls movie. Like, the Powerpuff Girls was just huge. Like, in 2000, the year 2000, 2001, 2002, nigga, you, especially in 02, you couldn't go nowhere without seeing the fucking Powerpuff Girls. You would see them in stores. Like, you will see them everywhere. Powerpuff Girls toys, CDs, DVDs, stuffed animals, coloring books, like, you, man, book bags, like, you nigga, Powerpuff Girls everywhere. Like, in the early 2000s, late 90s, like, arguably the most popular show in Cartoon Network history. Definitely the biggest money maker for Cartoon Network in the early 2000s, especially Powerpuff Girls. Just that impact. Even had his own reboot. That shit was garbage as hell, but it had his own reboot, you know, like, and it's still popular in pop culture to this day. You gotta have the Powerpuff Girls on that shit. That's just a must. Not only that, but just the impact of the amount of girl crime fighting shows you had after the Powerpuff Girls. Like, the amount of female superhero protagonists in kid cartoons you had after that. You had Totally Spies after that. You had Kim Possible after that. You had My Life as a Teenage Robot after that. What's another one? Hi Hi Puffy and Mayumi, Juniper Lee. I feel like I'm missing one, but shit, the Winx Club, like, nigga, you had a lot of shows that came after the Powerpuff Girls, you know, that were fighting crime. Because before the Powerpuff Girls, nigga, you never seen no female superheroes, especially, like, no 5-year-old little girl superheroes just whooping ass like that. Like, the only thing you seen is like Wonder Woman or some shit, but, like, you never seen that shit before the Powerpuff Girls. That shit was just, nigga, you just never seen it. After the Powerpuff Girls came out, there was a shit ton of female superhero protagonists that came out. Like I said, Kim Possible, Totally Spies, My Life as a Teenage Robot. Like, it was a lot of them bitches coming out after the Powerpuff Girls. But before that, nigga, you never seen that shit. You never seen that shit before then. You know, just female protagonists alone just took over in cartoons after that. Like, so the Powerpuff Girls, just their impact and their popularity alone. The Powerpuff Girls were so goddamn popular in the early 2000s. Like, in the Y2K era, Powerpuff Girls was fucking enormous. Like, damn near on SpongeBob level. Like, You just couldn't escape that shit back then. So the Powerpuff Girls, they're a must. They gotta be on there. Probably, definitely, for a while was Cartoon Network's biggest money maker. So you got Dexter's Laboratory, Ed, Edd and Eddy, and the Powerpuff Girls. Now my number 4 spot. This is tough. I'm gonna say this. Honorable mentions the Codename Kids Next Door. Honorable mentions to Billy and Mandy. Honorable mentions to Adventure Time, to Regular Show, to The Amazing World of Gumball. Honorable mentions to Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Honorable mentions to Courage the Cowardly Dog. Yeah, honorable mentions to them. Them shows didn't make it on the list. If they on any of y'all lists, I wouldn't be mad because they could arguably be on the list. Just Cartoon Network got so many goddamn shows that I feel like could be on this list, and they all got different reasons why they could be on the list, but they didn't make it on the list. Now, the number 4 spot is between 2 shows. It's between Teen Titans and it's between Ben 10. And for the longest, I was going back and forth like which one for to make the list. But honorable mentions to Teen Titans, which means Ben 10 is on the list. Ben 10 grabbed that 4th spot. I ain't gonna lie to you. Ben 10 got to be on the list. Ben 10 got to be on the list. Now, you know, I said like during the Powerpuff Girls era, the Powerpuff Girls was the biggest money maker for Cartoon Network, but shit, after them, Ben 10, it was Ben 10. It was goddamn Ben 10, boy. Like, you got the Omnitrix, you got all the fucking aliens, then you got the other aliens like Cannon Bolt that they that they added to the original Ben 10 series, like an additional like 4 aliens. Then you got a new batch of aliens for Ben 10 Alien Force. Then you got the ones they added in there. Then you got the aliens they added in Ben 10 Ultimate Alien. Like, bro, I feel like Ben 10, I don't know for sure, but I feel like Ben 10 will be, it's possibly Cartoon Network's biggest moneymaker of all time, especially when it comes to the toy department. Not only that, but the impact of Ben 10. The impact, the popularity, the amount of shows it got. Ben 10 got 5 different series. You got the original Ben 10, Ben 10 Alien Force, Ben 10 Ultimate Alien, Ben 10 Omniverse, the Ben 10 reboot that came out in 2017. Like, you got just whole generations of Ben 10. Whole generation of Ben 10. Kids today know Ben 10, but it's different from the Ben 10 that kids my generation grew up in. We grew up on OG Ben 10, Ben 10 Alien Force. Them niggas, they growing up on the reboot Ben 10, which, quite frankly, is extremely kiddish, but it's a money grab move. It's the Teen Titans Go shit. But I'm not even gonna talk about that. But you got different generations of Ben 10, 5 different shows. If you count all the shows Ben 10 got, Ben 10 was on Cartoon Network for 14 years, because the reboot Ben 10 ended in 2019. OG Ben 10 started in 2005, so that's 14 years is the longevity. And if I ain't mistaken, I think they still show the OG Ben 10 on reruns like now, to this day. Like, you Ben 10 is one of the shows you have to have Ben 10. Like, you can't have a Cartoon Network Mount Rushmore without Ben 10. You just can't. Now, if you didn't put Dexter, Power Girls, Ed, and Eddy on there, I wouldn't be too mad. Depending on what shows you put in their place. Like, if you put one of the ones I mentioned as honorable mentions, I'd be like, okay, they just younger or some shit, or just felt differently. But I feel like you just gotta have Ben 10. You don't even have to be a Ben 10 fan You don't have to be a Ben 10 fan at all, but you just can't deny its impact, its longevity in terms of all the shows it have. You damn sure can't deny its popularity. You can't deny the success it brought to Cartoon Network. Like, I feel like Ben 10 has to be on that list. All the live action movies it got, it was trash as hell. But all the live action movies it got, like just everybody growing up on different versions of Ben 10, kind of like Scooby Doo, kind of like the Looney Tunes, kind of like Tom and Jerry, like, you know, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of having like different iterations of it that different people grew up on and like better. You just gotta put Ben 10 on there. Like, you have to put Ben 10 on there. There's no way Ben 10 isn't on Cartoon Network Mount Rushmore. I definitely feel like it got arguably the strongest case to be on that list. Arguably the strongest. Like, you just had to put that nigga on that shit. So, yeah, like, again, at one point, you was seeing this nigga everywhere, seeing Ben 10 watches everywhere, the aliens in stores and shit, the toys, like, the Ben 10 watch everywhere, the Ben 10 book bags everywhere. Like, at one point, you was seeing this nigga everywhere, especially, like, in 2006, 2007, 08, 09 even, like, you was seeing this nigga Ben everywhere, bro. Like, you gotta have Ben 10 on there. Like, you have to. So that's my Cartoon Network Mount Rushmore list. You got Dexter's Laboratory, Ed, Edd n Eddy, the Power Girls, and Ben 10. Let me know if you agree with it. Let me know what shows you got on there. Let me know how you feel on my list. You know, for Nickelodeon side, it's SpongeBob, Rugrats, Fairly Odd Parents, and Hey Arnold. My Cartoon Network list is Dexter's Laboratory, the Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, and Ben 10. So yeah, that's my Mount Rushmore. You know, for each of the channels. And this was very hard to make. You know, this is it. I'm out. Peace.
Get the fuck up and take these timbers to Kansas.